Ladies and gentlemen, that is how you do Star Trek. Good night. Just kidding, just kidding. Hello and welcome to the Weekend Geeks, and it's here, our review of the entire series of Star Trek Picard, and it starts right now. Make it so. Hello and welcome to the Weekend Geeks, and I am thrilled to be able to talk to you about the entire series of Star Trek Picard from beginning to end. I had the opportunity to go see Picard's final 2 episodes at the IMAX in Dallas, Texas, and it was an incredible experience. I laughed, I cried. I think everybody in the room did the same as we saw the correct and the send-off that the next generation deserved. You know, we had a send-off in Nemesis, but it wasn't good. We got the end of Data, but we didn't go any further. You know, there was plans for another movie, but because Nemesis did so bad, it's like, why even bother? So in 2018, Patrick Stewart, he showed up at a Star Trek convention. No one knew he was going to be there. I recall sitting in the audience, hearing that there was going to be a special announcement. And Alex Kurtzman walks out on stage and he starts talking about this show that they're going to do, or this announcement that he's going to make. And then he brings out Sir Patrick. And Sir Patrick comes out unexpectedly. He's not on the guest list, mind you. And it's just amazing what came out of his mouth as far as what he would say. He held the audience captive like a good Shakespearean actor would, and he uttered the words, "Jean-Luc Picard is back." And the entire audience erupted. You could hear the noise throughout the Rio Convention Center and through the casino as people just erupted with the excitement of seeing their most favorite and most iconic captain return. You know, I had no idea. I didn't know what to think. I didn't know what to feel, because this was something that Patrick Stewart had said that he would not return to, that his time with Star Trek was over and he wanted to do other things. And he went on in his spiel about why he had to first turn it down and then why, you know, he eventually settled on doing it. It was because the fans kept telling him how much of an impact he made as a character, as an actor. Had Star Trek not been in these people's lives, they may have not done the different things that they were involved with. And that's very touching for the actor to hear. And he said, he mentioned a lot of that. He had some anecdotes. He had some stuff to mention. So and that was in 2018. We had 2019 with the release of the trailer. And then in 2020, we got what was the first episode that released right as the pandemic started to begin. But we got that first episode, and it started with Data. A lot of people over the course of the series have been critical about the notion of they keep going back to the Soons, they keep going back to the Borg. But if you look at the background of Picard, he was very much impacted by his assimilation to become Locutus. The Borg have been a part of him for this entire run, really, if you just look at it. And then Data being who he was and giving his life to save Picard and Nemesis, that relationship just exploded with the notion that Picard didn't want him to go away. So in season 1, we kind of get the old geriatric Picard. We get the guy that's set in his ways. He's out of Starfleet. He doesn't want anything to do with it. And then he gets back in because he sees this Soji. He sees Data's daughter, his surrogate daughter. And that would eventually lead him, of course, to go to visit Riker on Nepenthe, and then have the final episode where we lose Picard and he becomes a golem. And to me, that was the hardest part to accept in the film or the entire series is that, they got rid of Picard. But the interesting way they brought him back was like, okay, well, I guess I can accept that because Soon had done advancements in his research. Little did we know why his body failed and why he was kept. And we wouldn't learn any of that till the end. I thought in season 2 that they would touch on that, but they really didn't. They kind of just mentioned he was a golem, but they didn't go anywhere further. And I don't know what to think about that. We saw the end of what we thought was the end of Data, and I'm sure everyone was with me whenever we shed a few tears over the loss of Data, because that character was just gone. He was not going to return. Data got his wish to be human. He got everything that he wanted, and Picard was there to see it through to the end. And then he walked out and everything went back to normal. That was my biggest critique of season 1 and season 2, is that we didn't touch on these things. We just kind of let them go. Kind of like the magic blood in Star Trek Into Darkness. But, we're not going to talk about that. We're not going to talk about that. We're going to leave that one alone. In season 2, we had the La Sirena with Captain Rios, and we had his people come in and play a little bit more involved role in this. Of course, Q comes back and messes up the entire timeline, but he gives an opportunity for Picard to live some of one of his most traumatic moments in his life. And Picard had allowed that situation with his mother, with Mama, to really shape who he was. He was the person who didn't want people with him. He didn't open up to anyone. He was a very private man, as it was told to Vash. Now, that's one character I wish we would have seen, was Vash, but we didn't, and I'll allow that to pass by. But we saw that relationship with Q. Q gave him something that he needed. Picard needed to go through that. Even though it was a little bit of a cop-out, it was a little bit of they're doing time travel. We can let that go. Still, season 2 had its moments. I didn't personally think it was as bad as season 1, but according to Rotten Tomatoes, 29% of audience enjoyed season 2. And I can understand why. There was some issues with it, and I think it had to be corrected in season 3, and they didn't know where they were going at that point. We had the hippie Borg, as people have called them, Gerardus Borg, that left at the end of season 2 to go take care of the anomaly. They did not talk about that. They didn't really say anything about the anomaly. They didn't say what they were doing, what it was about. We just get this weird looking thing, and we get this alliance with the hippie Borg, and that's it. Let's go to season 3. But, so I don't know. A lot of times when people are writing shows, they kind of just think, well, I can go anywhere with this character. Or I could do anything. I could complete up a book. But I don't think they had fleshed out exactly what they were going to do with those characters. And they kind of left it hanging. People were very upset to see that we were losing Agnes. We knew we were going to lose Captain Rios. And we knew that storyline was going to come to an end. We did not know that Q was going to come to an end, or so we thought that Q was coming to an end. But it was very touching to see that Picard and Q would share a hug and collectively, for lack of a better word, collectively make right the 30 years relationship that they had. It was very touching. I really thought that in the series we were going to lose Picard completely. But we'll talk about that in a little bit. And then just recapping season 3, we got the send-off that Star Trek The Next Generation deserved. We got to look at the Enterprise D. We got to look at the relationship between Beverly and Picard. We knew from what we saw at the finale of The Next Generation that maybe in that alternative timeline that they would not be together. And it seemed to be true. They kind of let things slide or slip away after their little shindig. Now, I can tell you, as a fan, I knew when I first saw Ed Spilliers that he was going to be, that he was Jack Crusher. I knew that was Crusher's son. I just had a feeling, and I'm glad I was proven right on that. But so throughout season 3, we've had such great storytelling. We've really if it could be made to look like the meme that was for Game of Thrones. You know, the horse that's drawn really nice, and then it gets up of what, season 5 or 6, it gets to be really pristine and beautiful. And in the last season, it just kind of falls apart. Well, beginning of Picard, we get an all right drawing, and in the middle, it kind of falls apart. And then the end, it's this illustrious painting by Michelangelo, one of the most famous painters. It looks beautiful. It became a great series as a whole. Well, hey, when we come back, I want to give some further thoughts on season 3 and talk a little bit more about maybe the future of Star Trek. That's all coming up next on The Weekend Geeks. Well, welcome back to The Weekend Geeks, and we're still talking about season 3 of Star Trek Picard. And I just can't stop talking about it. It has been such a great adventure. From the first episode when we see the reveal of the USS Titan till the end of the series when names mean everything and we get the reveal of the Enterprise G and Captain 7 of 9 getting the captain's chair that she so much deserved. That was a great send-off that hopefully, I hope you're listening, CBS Paramount, hopefully will land another series of Star Trek in this kind of environment. I think people want to see more of the return to form Star Trek like we had Next Generation, Voyager, the old Star Trek films with Kirk, Spock, all of them. They want to see more of that, and maybe not so much new Trek as defined by shows like Discovery. There's been a lot of hate for Discovery as of late, and with its cancellation and its ending, there's plenty of opportunity for them to do a show that's based around that. Now, Alex Kurtzman did say at San Diego Comic-Con last year that he really only wanted to have about 2 to 3 series at most being produced because it is such work to produce those series. And it's all, at the end of the day, it's all about money with the studios, and you have to be able to sell the product to them. Season 3 is a clear example of budgetary constraints because we didn't get to see people like Walter Koenig at the end with his role of Anton Chekhov. A nice nod back to Anton Yelchin. We didn't get to see him. We didn't get to see Admiral Janeway, which would have been awesome to see her on screen. Maybe we'll get that with Star Trek Legacy. There's still room for that. And there was a few other things that we didn't get. I wish that we could have seen O'Brien. I thought that would be an interesting character to have been revealed again in this series. And of course, we had him in Lower Decks and all that. But to see O'Brien needed a little bit of love, I thought. Some of the most highlighted moments of season 3 had to also be the moment where Data and Lore interacted. And some of the most finest acting I think I've ever seen, where one actor is playing 2 characters battling basically himself. I didn't know where it was going to go. I thought Lore was going to win. I really did. The story made it feel like that's what was happening. We got to see things like Spot, which brought emotions because Lore saw everything that Data, all Data's humanity as objects, trophies on the wall, if you would. And by doing that, by collecting those trophies from Data, he basically overwrote himself. And we've said a final goodbye to Lore and a fond hello to Data. The Data that we got wasn't the Data that we saw in season 1, as it was made clear, but it was another variation. And I can totally accept that. This Data is a lot more cooler, kind of more in line with what we saw in Generations. And he had a lot of quirky comments and the sensing of emotions by driving through or flying through the Borg cube. Let me tell you what, I know people say that that's a lot of Star Wars in that, but it's very, very cool to see the Enterprise D, the galaxy, move that quickly. People always assume that the big starship wouldn't move that fast, that it couldn't. But seeing it maneuver through that was really incredible. And I can't talk enough about the series as a whole. We got an okay first 2 seasons, and then we got the Star Trek that we deserved. And at the end of the day, that makes good television. Sure, we said goodbye to a couple of characters that we really wanted to see more of. We said goodbye to Tosh Stashwick's character. Now, they can always bring him back. As they say, no death certificate. He's still out there. So we're going to hold tight that he could return. They always find the way to bring back characters. See, even if you look at the episode where they showed that Captain Kirk's body was sitting at Daystrom, and he was part of a Project Phoenix. If you've ever read the Shatnerverse books, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. But the door is there for people to be able to write stories that maybe, just maybe, we see the return of Captain Kirk. I really hope that we get a chance to see William Shatner on screen one more time in that role. I don't think we will, but it would be a great fan service to see him in that. And there's a lot that they can do with AI, with de-aging to make his character work in this environment. But the season as a whole was really good. The closing credits said a lot about the series, about season 3. We saw so many things hidden in that, from the DNA to the Pop Goes the Weasel song that Data tried to whistle in Encounter in Farpoint, and the cloaking device, the holodeck program. Everything is kind of in there. So you need to go back and look at the title sequence, and you'll see a lot of those elements present. And to me, that's interesting in itself. I'm thrilled that we got the Star Trek that we got. We could have had a lot different showing should someone else had been given the showrunner status. Terry Matalas being a fan was probably the biggest thing that made this season work, because a fan is going to know what a fan wants to see, and is going to be able to write stories that are compelling to fandom. I'll be amazed to see what they have in store for the next series. Hopefully they will greenlight something soon that will give us a look at Captain Seven and Jack Crusher and the rest of the next generation, to see where their voyages will go, to see what they will have in store for them. You know, it's unfortunate we didn't get to see people like Soji. We didn't get to see her. We didn't get to see Wesley Crusher come back. That's a story that's going to have to be told in the next series, I believe. We did not find out if Laris is still waiting for Picard, or if Picard and Crusher got married. It looks like they may have gotten married by the picture that Crusher puts in his quarters. But we have to talk about Q. I was not anticipating that. I had no idea they even thought about bringing Q back. But as Q mentioned, you're thinking about time in a linear format. He could have easily done this while he was doing things with Picard. He could easily have done that. And finally on this, isn't it thrilling to know that a send-off for a crew was given that was the most deserving ever? Watching these characters interacted with each other reminded me of the old days of Next Generation and how powerful their storylines were, how powerful their characters were written, how strong they became with each other, how the bond just kept getting closer and closer. Picard started out as a guy who didn't want any interaction, and at the end, he's wanting family. It was touching to see him say in the final episode that Jack was the best thing that he was missing. He didn't know that he was missing. He didn't know he needed Jack in his life. It took the Borg invasion for him to see that, because if not, he still would have been in that winery, on that farm, just sitting there waiting to die. I think that's what he would have done, because that's the way he was written at the beginning, was just kind of a guy that didn't really have much going, and he was just waiting for his turn. That's what it seemed like. But we got Jack, we got something from Picard that allowed him to be invigorated and to have the send-off that we deserved as fans. I can't say that enough. I can't stress that enough. We got something special. We were shown that it is possible to bring back those characters and bring back some storylines from the past and do them right. This just proved that there were always possibilities, as one captain would say. But on that set of unfortunate news, it's time for me to end, and boy, I'm going to be talking about this for weeks. I'd love to know what your thoughts were on Picard as a series. What were your fondest moments? What did you enjoy the most? What did you not like? What do you wish they would have touched on further? There are so many things here that we could talk about. I could spend hours discussing this with you. But I wanted to know your comments, and we'll see you next time on The Weekend Geeks. Good night.